Hello Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. That's my sofa, that's my dog Roscoe, and my name's Paul. And today we are going to be talking about another layer to this crazy case of Chad and Lori Daybell. Now specifically what we're going to talk about in this video and kind of dissect and look at is a phone call between Alex Cox's ex-wife Debbie and an investigator. And she's basically just giving them some information, spilling some tea, if you will, on things she kind of learned about the family, her time with Alex. Now, this was like a hot minute ago. So again, it was a while ago. But nonetheless, there were so many patterns that she was talking about that when I heard this, I was just like, oh my gosh, this makes sense and that makes sense. So anyways, we're going to try and connect the dots on this. And like I said, the tea spillage in this phone call is juicy. It is thick. It is steaming hot. It was to the point that I was like, I'm going to have to go on a new diet after all this. And speaking of a new diet as well as ooey gooey yummy foods for the fall, let's talk about our sponsor that we've got here officially on the Sofa Squad. Y'all join me while I talk about HelloFresh. I love that HelloFresh comes right to my door. Everything's easily labeled and marked in packaging that's almost entirely made from recyclable or already recycled content. Now, the first meal that we went with was the chimichurri barramundi. It was so good. Now, another thing that I love about them is how everything is proportioned. There's no excess waste. The ingredients are all there. It's not like when Matt and I go to the grocery store and we waste so much stuff. Also, the produce was so much fresher than what I usually get at the grocery store. Now, here's the thing. Matt and I love fall and winter. This is our time of the year when the season changes. We like that cozy home-cooked meal vibe, but we also like trying new things. So for us, HelloFresh keeps things fun and good while serving us those kind of home-cooked meal vibes, and it saves us a ton of time in the kitchen. Now, if you're like us, you get in a food rut easily, but HelloFresh has over 50 menu and market items to choose from vegetarian, calorie smart to gourmet options. And that's the thing for me. HelloFresh makes me feel like I'm a gourmet cook. This is what I make for friends when they come over. And guess what? You can too. Go to HelloFresh.com and use the code ReportingLiveFromMySofa 14 for up to 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use the code ReportingLiveFromMySofa 14 for up to 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. Okay, now, very quickly, like I said, what we're going to do in this video, we're going to be dissecting this phone call between Debbie as well as the investigator. Now, if you want to hear the whole phone call uninterrupted without me giving my 2 sofa cents, it's linked down below. Go listen to the whole thing and then come back and dish with me. That is totally fine. We are here for it. So without further ado, let's see what they have to say.
What is it that you can actually talk to us about regarding all of this?
Well, I can only share the conversation. So I was married to Alex many years ago, and our marriage ended within a year, but we stayed in very close contact for several years.
So as we hear her say, they were not married that long, which again seems to be a pattern with this group here. Back in 92 is when this actually took place. Just my opinion, one of the smartest things that she did was to run screaming from that situation, because honestly, it's probably why she's still here.
And I spoke to Alex last, right after he had served time in jail for the assault on Joseph Ryan. And when he was telling me about it, now Alex, I'm sure you know from your investigation, was a comedian. And he was always joking about things in a funny way or trying to be funny. And he did tell me he was still really, really mad at Joseph Ryan because of things with his sister Lori.
Okay.
Custody issues. And he had told me that Joseph Ryan had possibly the kids.
Now, y'all, this whole thing about he was a comedian and all that, this is very subjective. If you've seen the clips of him, I mean, we're just going to go with that. We're all entitled to our opinion to label him a comedian or not, or just pure cringy. That doesn't matter right now. So this part right here where she's talking about the custody issues going on, the allegations, so on and so forth. Here we see, now remember how long ago this was, right? So to me, this is my thing. I'm just like, okay, already you see this pattern, you see the same story, you see this whole protective brother thing, going with whatever Lori's saying, all this stuff, which again, as we get more to this phone call, we're going to see how prevalent that is and just how blindly he seemed to go along with things. But also, I think we start to see some of the reasonings why he had this kind of bizarre, awkward relationship with Lori.
But when I would ask Alex a lot of questions about it and try to dig deeper, then it would turn into, well, we're just trying to get custody. And he would flip-flop around quite a bit on whether or not that abuse had actually taken place, whether they had any proof it had taken place, or if they were just playing games to try to help his sister get custody.
Now, can we just say that last part for the people in the back? Okay, y'all, that whole thing about she was like, I couldn't tell they were just playing games trying to get custody. Amen, sister, number one. So interesting that she's even calling this out and those gut feelings of, what's going on here? When pressed for actual evidence, information, it was murky. It couldn't really be provided. She was like, something is completely sus here. Something is not adding up. This doesn't make sense. And again, we see so many people coming forward with this kind of allegations of, with Lori, her minions, Alex, all these people. And again, it's this pattern of they want to get something. This person, thing, whatever is in their way. They're going to do whatever they have to do to destroy that person's life, whatever it takes to remove them and get what they want, whether it's custody, their money, whatever.
In that conversation, he told me that he wanted to bait Joseph Ryan into a fight so that he could kill him. But he had told me he wanted to bait him into a fight so that he could kill him and claim self-defense.
Yo, that part sends chills down my spine. Obviously, if you have been following this case, you know this exact scenario right here that she's describing is very familiar and has seemingly, allegedly played out with another victim. So this is the whole thing. Now, she will go on to say, you know what, I didn't take him serious. And again, a lot of people aren't going to, especially when things are isolated, and say somebody is the type, like she said with him, oh, he was always making jokes about these things. Obviously, we know at this point, this family is crass and just blech, and I'm not talking about the victim's family, I'm talking about specifically Lori, okay, and Alex. So that seems to be the norm for those two. And so I'm sure there was like a level of like, he's angry, he's taking it out, whatever. And then as she would say, you know what, I just figured that his time being in jail over the situation that he had done to Joseph, had just kind of like made him angry, made him a little bit, messed up or whatever. I think he was that way before. Jail probably didn't help the situation.
Did he ever go into any details of what he did to Joe or anything like that, or why he did that?
Yeah, he told me that he had tased him, and he told me that the reason he did it was because Joe was making it difficult for Lori to get custody of the kids. He also claimed that he did it as punishment for saving the kids. He said he thought Joseph deserved to die.
So again, just listening to this, we can see Alex from the get-go just about is willing to lash out, do whatever is necessary to help Lori get what she wants, to, inflict retaliation, revenge, whatever you want to call it, but also just to get what they want, which in this scenario seems to be custody of the kids. So here's the other thing. Now we start to get into this a little bit more with this last segment we listened to of Alex, again, being willing to do whatever, but also blindly accepting or going with a narrative that there's just no real proof to. We just heard her saying that when pressed for information, yada, 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 he really couldn't provide it, but it was just, well, he doesn't deserve to live because of what he did to the kids. And I'm just like, but you haven't presented solid evidence of that, at least in this scenario that we're listening to here, but yet you're willing to go to these extremes or whatever. And a lot of it just sounds like this retaliation. Now, again, I do think that Lori pulled his strings a whole bunch, and we're going to get a little bit more into that. I am not saying that to alleviate any of his responsibility. I think he is just as guilty in all of this stuff, but I also circle back around to where I'm like, this is somebody who, according to Melanie Gibb, 100% believed in the zombies and all this type of stuff. Now we've seen from other evidence coming out that there was starting to be this realization of maybe I'm the fall guy, but again, I'm just like, dude, you should have seen that like miles ago. Okay,
but really Alex couldn't provide any. Well, I didn't feel, because I was like, well, are you sure? How do you know? Did you take the kids to a doctor? I was asking a lot of questions, and he just couldn't be straight with the answers.
Now, again, just listening to that, I don't even think it would have mattered if they provided any evidence. I think Lori could literally wake up one day, call Alex, and say, the sky is purple, it's so-and-so's fault, we need to take them out because of it. And he would go with that and believe it 100%. And again, like I've been saying, I think there's a mixture of reasons as to why he was that way with her and possibly other people. And so let's start to like peel those stinky layers back.
As soon as I married him, I didn't know his family before we got married. We dated, whirlwind romance, got married, then I got to know the family. And there were so many crazy dynamics in that family.
Girl, you got my attention. Dish, girl, dish. Now, here's the thing. I mean, y'all, if ever there was a commercial to be like, investigate who you're going to get married to, let it be this, okay? So she would say that these things that she started seeing and whatnot, like, made her scared, nervous. And when asked, like, why and in what way, this is what she had to say.
How so?
And we thought about, because there was a lot of inappropriate touching and things going on in the family, particularly between him and his sister.
So between Alex and Lori?
And Lori.
Okay, now y'all, go ahead and buckle up your damn sofa seatbelt, because this ride's about to get real bumpy and I don't want nobody falling out of the damn car, off the sofa onto the floor, and just, having a spill on aisle 5. Okay, so let's just pause for 1 second. Many of us have speculated this vibe, this thing between Alex and Lori. Is there more to it? Is there this, is there that? Hearing someone who is like an outside source, I guess you could say, and explaining and telling their dynamic of the situation, kind of what I call coming in cold, and seeing this vibe and seeing these actions going on and being like, this is all broken. Okay, this sheds so much light on so many different layers to the case, as well as Lori and Alex's relationship.
Okay, you kind of got me at a loss on this one. What do you consider inappropriate?
Like, they were simulating sex, and which is not normal to me for a brother and a sister. He would pick her up and she'd wrap her legs around his waist, and he would kind of bounce her up and down on himself.
Okay.
In front of me, and
Oh my god. Yeah, the cringe is so horrifyingly painful. I'm sorry. I apologize. We have to sage this room. We're done with this one, y'all. Imagine marrying somebody, going to their family, their home, and that happens, and you have to sit here and begin questioning, am I crazy? Am I finding myself having these feelings about the way my husband is acting with his sister? I can't wrap my mind around that part. You know what it reminds me of? I don't know the episode, anything like that, but there was this, if you watch Sex and the City, there was this thing, and I can't even remember who it was that had gotten with this guy, but it turned out that him and his mother had like this really creepy close relationship, and like if he was taking like a bath or something, and she was okay with sitting there talking to him, and she was having to be like, why? They were making her out to be like, you're being weird for making this weird. Y'all, this reminds me so much of that. Except they weren't in New York and it wasn't some glamorous TV show. It was real. But this starts to answer the question about this whole thing about how protective Alex was over her. That whole energy level there of like, almost like, this is almost like a protective boyfriend or lover, not so much a brother. You know, there's like that energy going. Now Debbie will go on to say the parents talked very freely about their bedroom activities in front of everybody. Like, this is just completely normal. And she's, you know, like, it's like inappropriate, you know, to the level that they discuss this. And also this kind of behavior between Alex and Lori would take place in front of the parents. Now she would say, you know what, that kind of behavior, it was treated like a joke. There was just absolutely no shame about this.
Well, he was a really, really protective big brother, but he also talked about her being hot, and he sexualized her quite a bit. But he was just also really, really protective. We lived in the same apartment complex for a while, and it just kind of seemed like Alex just chased after her a lot.
Oh, y'all, this is how I literally had to listen to that last clip. It was so painful, I had to close my eyes to listen to it, okay? That's what I'm talking about. But again, we hear her going with that whole thing of how protective he was, this and the other, and again, like I just said, it takes it beyond this like brotherly level. The whole thing about him talking about how hot she was, I'm just like, and again, I'm just trying to even wrap my mind around that, or like get, you know, err on the side of like, well, maybe he meant this, but there's so much other stuff going on that I'm like, no, I think he meant it just like that. And there's that. Now, the key words in this segment were he seemed to chase after her, because that is what seems to go on with these two. And we're going to talk in a second how I think she got him to do this, or one way of that. But he does seem to chase after her. She does seem to be his kryptonite. And that does seem to be highly inappropriate. But it also gave her this power over him to, in my opinion, get him to do some unthinkable things. Now, once the investigator starts to like circle back around to some information, you can tell that Debbie really has this like long-term thinking about this, of like the implications of being married to a man like this, possibly bringing children into the home, you know, into their life, and all that kind of stuff, which, yes, most normal people, and she is, you know, to me, seemingly normal in this, would see all these as major red flags and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, got to go.
Did you ever confront him on that?
Yeah, I did, and I confronted him on, what about when we have kids? Would you allow that between our kids? And he just didn't think that there was anything wrong with what was going on.
No, burn the whole relationship down, throw it out. It's the whole thing's garbage, throw it away. Again, hats off to you, sister. Thank God you ran away from this situation in this family, okay, and did your thing. Again, I think it's part of the reason why she's still here, and thank God that she just saw this and saw these red flags and had the courage enough to be like, I'm a split. Now, Debbie will also talk about one of Lori's earlier marriages, and some of the insights from that, again, it's like this foreshadowing of what's to come.
And they didn't approve of her choice, and she did run away and elope. And the minute she got back to California, their dad, Barry, made her divorce him. And so Alex was like really, really bothered by that. But if anybody kind of looked at her wrong or treated her how he thought was not right, then he was always talking about how he wanted to kick their ass.
You know, I think plain and simple jealousy. Plain and simple jealousy. I just think that there was this level where he wanted to be with her, and this is probably one of the few things that he knew just couldn't happen publicly or whatever, and there was just this level of jealousy. It went beyond protective big brother into pure, I want her. Now, another sign of this is Debbie will go into talking about his relationship with the church, as well as some of his weaknesses.
And then over the course of the years of our communicating after our divorce, I know that he said he got rebaptized, and then he got excommunicated again. Then I just don't think he ever bothered to try to get rebaptized, but he was always really, really convicted in the faith. He had very strong opinions, but where Alex is weak is he was just sexually promiscuous. And so then he just kept getting kicked out of the church because I think he was a sex addict.
And herein is like the nitty gritty of this. I think that probably 100% was one of his issues. It sounds like they grew up in a house that kind of fostered that to some degree. Now, if you listen to the full phone call, she will discuss how he didn't act this way with his other sisters and whatnot. It was just with Lori. There seemed to be this very odd situation with just Lori. I think that Lori... And again, this is just my opinions here. This is allegedly. I obviously didn't grow up with them. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a shrink. I'm not a psychiatrist. Any of that stuff. So this is just my 2 cents. I think that Lori basically learned to use her looks, things of that nature, as a commodity. It seems like it was almost encouraged between her and Alex, and like this whole level of him treating her like this object was okay. And I think she learned to manipulate Alex. I think that was one of the first people she probably did this with, and learned to kind of harness her skill. And so I think that she was very much this way with her brother, and I think she continued it. And I think that's why we see him so willingly going forth and doing things. At the end of the day, I think he wanted to be with her. You know, I mean, to be quite honest, I think there was this very bizarre jealousy that he had of this men, and if they didn't do anything exactly as it was going to please her, he would do whatever was necessary. And I don't think that anyone would ever pass that bar. I think eventually Chad would have fallen in the same category, you know. Granted, I am not trying to defend any of those monsters by saying that, but I'm just trying to view how I think all this came about, you know, and that's just one layer of it. There's so many other things going on. But just hearing Debbie talk about this and her insights in that, you know, arena on that snapshot of the family during this time, like way back when, this is just what it sounds like to me. Now, she would go on to cite some other examples in this. She said one time they were in Texas and he came home, was basically like, pack your stuff, we have to go, you know, and it turns out he had been having some kind of relations with a very young lady, and so they basically had to skip town. She said that basically these two huge things for her relationship with him was that promiscuity and his relationship with Lori. And that just speaks volumes to me, especially those two combinations, like that whole sister thing and the whole other thing. I'm like, that's really, really gross. But it is what it is. I think it just adds more insight into what played out and how it played out. Again, I think that all these parties were equally guilty in this. And I'm not talking about Debbie. I'm specifically talking about Chad, Lori, and Alex, as far as just those 3 people go. And I think that she knew how to pull his cords. And I think that, you know, Chad was right in there and he kind of went along with it. And again, I think if they had been able to get away with this, I do think, personally, in my opinion, they were going to make sure that he didn't continue on because he knew too much. But, like, let's say they didn't do that. I think that at some point he would have been doing this same thing to Chad. Something would have happened. Lori would have used Chad up, and it would be, oh, he did this, and oh, he did that, and on to the next thing. So, I don't know. I'm curious what y'all think. Please let me know. Now, also, I do want to say, I did that post about, do y'all want me to read Chad's book? Not his book, but that text message that he wrote to Lori that, you know, saying it was like a romance novel. So I'm going to start recording that. It's going to be kind of different because I'm going to basically just have my laptop and kind of read it and make commentary along the way. And oh my God, I'll probably do like one little, I call them chapters, but again, it was a text message. So, you know, it is what it is, but it's painful. But again, there's just these like little insights to be taken in there. So that's it. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. I'd love to hear that from you. And that's it. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Don't forget to check out our sponsor today, HelloFresh. It's in the description below. And until the next time that we gather around the old sofa with the old Roscoe and the old Paul, I will see my sofa squad real soon.